Hello.
Hello, Jacob. You going to be the co-host with your dad?
Um, he can't do it today.
Oh,
Uh, our grandmother had to go to the hospital, so he's kind of busy with that.
oh boy. So
Is it okay if Jonah and I what's it called? Step
do it.
up to do it?
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Okay, thank
Trust
you.
you. What's the matter with your grandmother?
She fell.
Oh, okay. Did she break anything, or you don't
No,
know?
she just dislocated her hip.
Dislocated. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's better than breaking the hip, so it's not as dangerous for her, but
Yeah.
very scary. Yeah. So I just made you the co-host. And
Okay, thank you.
we're good. Thank you. Thank you guys for doing this today.
You're welcome.
Mhm. Andy Sandberg, are you there?
Yeah, I'm just about getting ready here. Good.
Okay, good. Shabbat shalom.
I'm getting my lights together.
Hi, Rabbi.
Hey, I just made you co-host. Yeah, just made you. Any update on Betty Ann or?
So her hip has been popping out recently in the past 6 months. Maybe she's been in 4 times, and trying to figure it all out. What's
Right.
going to happen right now? She's at the hospital. They haven't admitted her, but they're going to try and pop it back in.
Uh-huh.
So we're not sure.
Mm.
Josh was up all night with that.
Oh, boy.
So is it okay that the boys help you out?
Yeah. No, that's great. They've done it before. They essentially do it when, Josh looks like he's doing it, but I think Jonah and Jacob are really doing it.
That's true.
So,
Well, we all do it.
You all do
yeah.
it?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Well, Jonah, I hope your grandmother will be okay.
Yes. And so you guys will say her name for the Mishabera, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember what it is?
Yes.
Come close. There you go. There's Jonah. All right. So thank you for letting them help out.
Oh, sure. Of course. So I made both Jacob and Jonah co-hosts. So whichever screen they're on, they can.
They're on both.
Yes.
Do you want to get your earbud?
No thanks.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
Hmm.
All right. You're good for that?
Yeah.
Thank you, JoJo.
So she's at Holy Cross?
Now she's at Suburban. She wanted to go to Sibley, but they're not admitting anyone right now.
Oh, I see.
So
Is that where her doctor is?
her doctor is at Sibley.
Oh, I
Wait,
see.
yeah. Her doctor's at, oh gosh, I can't. Are there 3 different S1s? Suburban, Sibley, and
Shady Grove?
no, there's 2 DC ones, and her doctor's at one of the DC ones.
Oh, well, there's Sibley, I think, is the only S1 in DC because there's GW, there's Georgetown.
Okay, I don't know.
Three.
But she wanted to go to Sibley, but they just refused.
Right.
But Suburban, the doctor there seems really capable, and so that was good in the ER.
Yeah,
Because you want somebody in the ER.
Yeah, I think they have a good orthopedic department.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember where her doctor is, but I know she likes Sibley just because it's a small hospital usually.
Right, but it's a pain to get there. It's
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Suburban's in Rockville, I think, right?
It's in Bethesda.
Oh, it's Bethesda.
Yeah, it's like a quarter mile from Bethel on Georgetown Road. Old
Oh,
Road.
okay. All right. Yeah. So Josh like raced there to be
Uh-huh.
to meet the ambulance
I see.
last
Did they
night.
let him in?
No,
No.
no,
Uh-huh.
no, they wouldn't allow that. And he actually has to try and go there now and drop some stuff off for her
I see.
because he's not sure if they're allowing her, if they're admitting her or not.
Uh-huh.
But like her phone cord and things like that.
Right. What a mess.
Yeah, yeah. It's like she was just, if for some reason she wanted to stand up for the kiddish when we were FaceTiming with her,
Oh,
and her hip just didn't hold her.
popped out. Mm-hmm. Ay.
Yeah, it's a bummer. It's a bummer, especially since this was a hip that had been replaced.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
That's unusual then. For a
both
hip.
of her replaced hips are failing.
Well, how long ago were they replaced?
One was about 20, and the other maybe 25.
Yeah, well,
Maybe
so
15.
at the time that they're put in, I think they only have like a lifespan of about 15 years.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
now uh, fake hips, artificial hips last a lot longer, but yeah,
But she was supposed to get this one replaced, but no hospital is allowing that right now.
right. And how old is she?
80.
80. Uh-huh. Yeah.
So,
Hey,
we just got to kind of roll with it, support her as necessary, and
right.
take it from there.
Uh-huh.
It's hard, it's hard to be alone
Yes,
and a senior. And
right.
I mean, she had her caregiver there, but just like a baby, you can't turn your back and think that
Right.
everything's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
We've
Yeah,
all been there when we turned our back on a kid and all of a sudden their face
absolutely.
forward. And
Right.
I'm not saying she's a kid, but when you have a caregiver, they have to do
Yeah.
everything.
Right.
But
Huh. Hmm.
so, we're hoping that her body can hold up a little longer until she can get the replacement. And
Yeah. Is she health-wise able to withstand such a surgery? Like there aren't any other heart
that's
conditions or anything else?
that's another worry. That's another
Uh-huh.
worry. But
Sometimes.
I think she's been mostly cleared for surgery.
Uh-huh.
But nobody's doing surgery like that
Right. Huh.
right
I wonder, it might be a relatively simple procedure, all things being equal.
Yes.
The taking out the hip and putting in a new one. I don't think that that's such a.
I think the new procedure is much less invasive, and they're only like putting in a new part, I think.
Right.
So, but still, she's 80 and she's got underlying conditions and stuff.
Right.
But God willing, all will be okay.
Yes.
So,
Shabbat shalom, Cantor Adina and
I
Cheryl.
can't, Regina.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and Happy New Year in advance.
Yep, to you too.
Yep, you
Yeah.
too.
Hopefully,
So-
it's got to be better than this year, but one never
Anything
knows.
else? Yeah.
I hope so.
So, Rabbi, do you have her Hebrew name on there?
So what is it?
Belachana Bat. What is it,
No.
Jonah?
I don't have. I know for sure I don't have that name, but Bella Chana Bat,
Bat.
and then her mother.
Do you remember what Gaga's Hebrew name is?
Oh, Papa says,
Fega.
yeah.
Fega.
So Bela Hana Bat Fega.
Mm-hmm.
Try to remember that. I can't write it down because of
Yeah.
short, but
Yeah.
if Jonah or Jacob say it during the Shabbat, that'll be fine.
So thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm turning it over to Jonah now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Shabbat shalom.
You too. Shabbat shalom. Jacob and Jonah, you got to get to work here and let people in. There you go.
Jacob doing it.
Hey, Charlotte. Shabbat
Hi.
shalom. Hi,
Shabbat
Audrey.
shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Hmm.
Shabbat Shalom, Cantor.
Shabbat Shalom, Audrey. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good.
And you?
I have a kid home. Life is
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
that's good.
Good.
Yeah, Josh is home from Cleveland for a bit.
Nice.
He'd actually make an appearance on.
Hi.
Hi.
Shabbat Shalom, dear.
Shalom, Mom and Dad.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Charlotte.
Shalom all.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Jules.
Hey, Jules, Shalom. Gary and Stacy, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom to you, Rabbi.
Is our mic okay, Jonah?
I hear you totally fine.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But remember, you're going to be muted once the service starts. You have to remember
That's
to
true,
unmute
but
yourself.
to go back, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'll unmute you.
Yes, please.
Shabbat Shalom, David. Shabbat Shalom, Paul.
Shabbat Shalom.
Change our name to Shabbat Shalom, Judy and Jules.
Shabbat Shalom, Judy and Jules.
You heard.
Does anybody remember the Bobbsey twins?
Sure. Yep. Sure.
I was thinking about it, and I don't know why it popped into my mind, but I remember reading it. A number of them. There were a series.
Yeah, there's a whole series,
Yeah.
right?
I thought mainly girls read the Bobbsey twins and
That's what I thought.
boys read the Hardy
You never
Boys.
know.
I vaguely remember.
That's a heck of a
Yeah.
thing to say. on
I
Shabbos.
just saying.
Just
There's
being
Hardy Boys,
truthful.
but
I
there's
know.
Nancy Drew. There's
It's the
Nancy
truth.
Drew and the Hardy Boys.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nancy Drew was definitely a girl.
Nancy Drew, that's right.
Just beware, Rabbi. The lawyers notified two of these conservative news outlets that they were going to sue them for lying about the election machines, the companies,
Right.
and they're putting retractions on
Uh-huh.
all their main programs.
Yes.
That you ought to thank them since it's after the election, you know, after everybody has been convinced.
There's an article today on the front page of the Post about Trump's lawyer, Powell, who is using a star witness, secret witness, who is a known liar about her resume, where she went to college, what degrees that she has. She's a podcaster, and that's her star witness.
She's not so secret because they printed her name.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a secret anymore. She may still be a liar, but so is that.
Right.
You're not a secret liar.
Shabbat Shalom, Saul.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Saul.
I get the feeling that the more you call him a liar, the stronger his followers, the cult followers of Trump.
I enjoyed kind of reading Dave Barry's lengthy year in review in the Washington Post magazine this morning. So if you haven't read that yet, that's
I always enjoyed that one.
a funny and sad review of the year.
Mhm.
Shabbat Shalom, Rita. Shabbat Sylvia.
Hello.
Sylvia, Shabbat
Dan.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Nice to hear you.
Oh, I think
we
Sylvia's
heard you.
connected.
For a moment there.
I have to get my
Your what?
I have to get my Misha Berach list.
2, 4, 5, 7, 9.
Good morning, Jules. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Rita.
Shabbat Shalom.
All right, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. And We have the Lansky boys as our Zoom co-hosts this morning, though I have a sense it's mainly one boy, Jonah, who is doing the bulk of the work, but we appreciate their help tremendously. If they can take care of muting everybody except for me and Cantor Adina, that would be great. And, or if people want to mute themselves, that would be helpful too. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and we'll begin the service this morning. In Lev Shalem, we're on page 147. In Shabbat Sim Shalom, we're on page 105. We begin with Shochenad.
Shochenad, Marom v'kadosh shemo.
Shochenad, Shemo
V'chatuv ranenu tzadikim baronai, la yesharim nava tehila. B'fi yesharim titalal, u'v'divrei tzadikim titbarach. ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמקהלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל ברינה שכן חובת כל היצורים לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, להודות, להולל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, להדר, לברך, להלל ולקלס על כל דברי שירות, ותשבחות דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך, ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו. ברכות והודעות מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אל חי העולמים.
We rise for Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה, בעלמא דברה קירותך, ימך מלכותך בחייכון וביומכון, ובחייך ובית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמך רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמך לקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל.
May be seated. We continue in Lev Shalem on 150, in Sim Shalom 107. Kol yaducha, kol yashabachucha, kol yakadosh kadonai. אין
קרקך ואין זולתך, אפס בלתך ומדומה לך. אין כערכך אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה, ואין זולתך מלכנו לחיי העולם הבא. אפס בלתך גולנו לימות המשיח. ואין דומה לך מושיענו לתחיית המתים. אל אדון על כל המעשים, ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה, גודלו וטובו מה לעולם, דעת ותבונה סובבים אותו, המתגאה על חיות הקודש, ונדר בכבוד על המרכבה, זכות ומישור לפני כיסאו, חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו, טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו, יצרם בדעת, בבינה ובהשכל, כוח וגבורה נתן בהם, להיות מושלים בקרב תבל, מלאים זיו ומפיקים נוגה, נעזיבם בכל העולם, שמחים בצאתם וששים בבואם, עושים באמה רצון קונם, פאר וכבוד נותנים לשמו, צהלה ורינה לזכר מלכותו, קרא לשמש ויזרח אור, ראה והתקין צורת הלבנה, שבח נותנים לו כל צבא מרום, תפארת וגדולה, שרפים ואופנים וחיות הקודש, לאל אשר שבת מכל המעשים.
We're on page 152 in Lev Shalem, on to the top of page 152 onto 153, and top of 109 in Sim Shalom onto 110.
תתברך מושיענו שבח מעשה ידיך, ועל מאור שעשית יפארו הסלע. תתברך צורנו מכנו וגואלנו בורא קדושים. וכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה וטהרה, בשירה ובזמרה, ומברכים ומשבחים ומפארים ומעריצים ומקדישים וממליכים את שם האל המלך הגדול, הגיבור והנורא קדוש הוא. וכולם מקבלים ומלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח, בשפה ברורה ובנימה קדושה, כולם כאחד עונים ואומרים ביראה, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. ואופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גדול מתנשאים לעומת צרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. לאל ברוך נמות יתנו, המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד מעשה בראשית כאמור, לעושה אורים גדולים כי לעולם חסדו, אור חדש על ציון תאיר, אור חדש על ציון תאיר, אור חדש על ציון תאיר, אור חדש על ציון תאיר. ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות.
We're on page 154 in Lev Shalem, 111 and Sim Shalom. We gather together our tzitzit in preparation for the Shema.
והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו, כי אל פה אל ישועות אתה, ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול, סלע באמת, להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. והיה אם שלום תשמעו מצוותיי. וקרא אף אדוני בכם ועצר את השמיים ולא יהיה מתי.
We continue the middle of page 156 in Lev Shalem, or the top of 113 in Sim Shalom.
ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית, על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף פתיל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, וראיתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם, ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. לדור ודור הוא קיים, ושמו קיים, וכיסאו נכון, ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיימת. עולמים. אמת, שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, מלכנו מלך אבותינו, גואלנו גואל אבותינו, יוצרנו צור ישועתנו, פודנו מצילנו מעולם שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך. עזרת אבותינו אתה הוא מעולם, מגנו מושיע לבניהם אחרים. ממצרים גאלתנו אדוני אלוהינו בימים וניתנו רם ונישא שבם אליו תהילות ליל עליון, ברוך הוא מבורך, משה ומרים ובני ישראל לכנו שירה, בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, שיר החדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופתח נאומך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Start the Amida out loud, page 159 in Lev Shalem, 115 in Sim Shalom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ופוקד ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם מכלכל חיים בחסד מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים
וקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדיש עבודו בשמי מרום כך כתוב אליך כרזה על זה ליומם
נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו
רעש גדול יחזק משלים כל מנסים ומצרפים ומתם ברוך שמי
אז בקול רעש גדול אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול מתנשאים לעומת שרפים לעומתם ברוך יאמרו
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו
ממקומו
המקים צפייה דמחלינו כמחכים תיקדע ותיקדש בתוך ראשון יחד זו מסכים
ממקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך מתי תמלוך בציון בקרוב ביומנו לעולם ועד תשכון תתגדל ותתחדש בתוך ירושלים עירך לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים ועינינו תראנה מלכות כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. על ידי דוד משיח צדקך, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Continue silently 162 to 166 in Lev Shalem, 117 to 120 in Sim Shalom.
ושמרו בני ישראל את שמי ישראל.
And as we conclude our private prayers, we continue with Sim Shalom, page 165 in Lev Shalem, the top of 120 in Sim Shalom.
שים, שים, שים שלום, שים שלום טובה וברכה בעולם. שים, שים, שים שלום טובה וברכה. חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך. ברכנו אבינו כולנו כאחד באור פניך. שים, שים, שים שלום, שים שלום טובה וברכה בעולם. שים, שים, שים שלום טובה וברכה. כי באור פניך נתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו תורת חיים ואהבת חסד וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום. שים, שים, שים שלום, שים שלום טובה וברכה בעולם. שים, שים, שים שלום טובה וברכה. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך, עמך ישראל, בכל עת ובכל שעה משלומך. שים, שים, שים שלום, שים שלום טובה וברכה בעולם. שים, שים, שים שלום טובה וברכה. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
Amen. We continue with Kaddish Shalem, the full Kaddish 167 and Lev Shalem 138 and Sim Shalom.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה,
Amen.
ועלמא דברה חירותך, וימליך מלכותך בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו
Amen.
אמן.
Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach.
לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמך דקודשה ולעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו
Amen.
אמן. תתקבל צלותון ובאותון דכל ישראל, קדם אבוהון דבשמיא ואמרו
Amen.
אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיא, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו
Amen.
אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו
Amen. We turn back in our Sidurim to the Psalm for Shabbat. In Lev Shalem, we turn back to page 112. In Sim Shalom, we turn back to page 72.
היום יום שבת קודש, שבו היו הלווים אומרים בבית המקדש. מי יזמור שיר ליום השבת טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמו העליון, להגיד בבוקר. עוד ינובון בשיבה, דשנים ורעננים יהיו, להגיד כי ישר אדוני, צורי ולא הבלעת בו.
Warner's Kaddish is found on page 121 in Lev Shalem or 82 in Sim Shalom. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael b'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam ome'ol maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudesha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shloma rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav v'yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May be seated. We turn our attention now to our Chumashim. The Torah reading this morning is Vayigash. We're nearing the end of the book of Bereshit, the book of Genesis. The blessing for Torah study, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Naomi Yadin Mendek will be reading portions of this parsha in just a moment. Let me just say a couple of words first of introduction. The portion begins on page 274 in Eitz Chaim. Whatever edition of Chumash you're using, you're looking for the portion Vayigash, which is Genesis chapter 44, beginning with verse 18. So the portion continue. We were left hanging last week as Joseph, who the brothers do not recognize as Joseph yet, demanded of his brothers that they bring, that he wants to have Benjamin be a hostage if the brothers, in order for the brothers to get food. And so now comes that crucial point. What are the brothers going to do? Are they going to allow are they going to stay the same as they were? The brothers who put Joseph in a pit and sold him off to slavery to the Ishmaelite caravans 20 years before, or have they changed? And of course, for the rabbis, they understand Joseph as enabling the process of teshuvah, the process of repentance, as opposed to a normal human reaction of wanting to enact revenge against his brothers. So there's a lot of psychological elements that are at play in this morning's portion, not just at the very beginning, but there are other places in the portion as well where this comes into play. And so Judah then, in a very passionate speech, that's how this morning's Torah portion begins, pleads with Joseph not to do this to their brothers, and especially not to do this to their father, who is old and has already seen one son disappear, and he doesn't want to see another son disappear. And so this Joseph can't stand it anymore. He can't go on with the disguise anymore, and he reveals his identity to his brothers. So Naomi will begin reading for us on page 274. She'll read what is designated as the first aliyah, verses 18 through 30.
ויגש אליו יהודה ויאמר בי אדוני ידבר נא עבדך דבר באוזני אדוני ויחר אפך בעבדך כי כמוך כפרעה. אדוני שאל את עבדיו לאמור היש לכם אב או אח? ונאמר אל אדוני יש לנו אב זקן וילד זקונים קטן ואחיו מת ויוותר הוא לבדו לאמו ואביו אהבו. ותאמר אל עבדיך הורידוהו אלי ואשימה עיני עליו. ונאמר אל אדוני לא יוכל הנער לעזוב את אביו ועזב את אביו ומת. ותאמר אל עבדיך אם לא ירד אחיכם הקטון איתכם לא תוסיפו לראות פניי. ויהי כי עלינו אל עבדך אבי ונגד לו את דברי אדוני. ויאמר אבינו שובו לנו מעט אוכל. ונאמר לא נוכל לרדת אם יש אחינו הקטון איתנו וירדנו כי לא נוכל לראות פני האיש ואחינו הקטון איננו איתנו. ויאמר עבדך אבי אלינו אתם ידעתם כי שניים ילדה לי אשתי ויצא האחד מאיתי ואומר אך טרף ולא ראיתיו עד הנה ולקחתם גם את זה מעם פניי וקראו אסון והורדתם את שיבתי ברעה שעולה. ועתה כבואי אל עבדך אבי והנער איננו איתנו ונפשו קשורה בנפשו.
So as we read here, there's a fascinating comment on the bottom, below the line on 274 about what this Vayigash Elav Yehuda means. Then Judah approached him. That's the literal translation of that, not went up to him, but approached him. And so the commentary known as the Sifat Emet, which is a Hasidic commentary, suggests who is the him that he's approaching. So who is Judah approaching? And the Sfat Emet suggests that he's approaching himself, that he's turning inward. It's a psychological insight as to what Judah has to do in order to make this speech. He has to recognize that all of his brothers, except for Joseph and Benjamin, are secondary to Joseph and Benjamin. As he says in his speech, there were 2 sons my wife had. Well, what about 10 other sons and a daughter that his other wife and their maid servants who he took as wives had as children as well? Don't they count? But Judah recognizes the secondary place that he and his brothers have to Joseph and Benjamin, and that being able to recognize that as a son, that you are not as favored as you'd want to be, and that your father has favoritism to other brothers. That's a very difficult thing to be able to accept. And the Sfat Emet very brilliantly in this insight suggests that Judah, however long it took him to do this, recognized this, able to accept it and move on with his life, and then be able now to confront Joseph in this way and to make this impassioned plea on his brothers and his father's behalf. The portion goes on, then Judah continues speaking, and then in chapter 45, as it begins on the bottom of 275 and on to 276, Joseph can't withstand this tension anymore. He clears the room except for his brothers and reveals his identity to them. And the brothers are stunned, and Joseph has to convince them, yes, it is really me, your brother here. And Joseph adds a religious element. Either Joseph is doing this or the narrator of the Torah adds this. Don't worry, God had this plan in mind to have me sold off into slavery so that I could rise to this position and to end up saving you and my family from this famine, of which there are 5 more years ahead of us. And then he also hugs his brother Benjamin and gives him special treatment. And so then now, in the fourth, what is designated here as the 4th Aliyah, which Naomi will read for us on 278, it's chapter 45, verses 19 to 27. Here, Joseph tells his brothers, go back to Canaan, go back, and I'm giving you all these carts and donkeys, special treatment so that you can get back there more quickly, extra cargo, and bring our father back with you and the rest of the household, because there's 5 more years of famine that you're going to have to withstand, and I'm going to allow you to live in one of the best places in Egypt, the land of Goshen. 278, beginning with verse 19. Go ahead, Naomi.
ואתה צווית זאת אספו לכם מארץ מצרים עגלות לטפכם ולנשיכם ונשאתם את אביכם ובאתם ועיניכם אל תחוס על כליכם כי טוב כל ארץ מצרים לכם הוא ויעשוכם בני ישראל וייתן להם יוסף עגלות על פי פרעה וייתן להם צידה לדרך, לכולם נתן לאיש חליפות שמאלות, ובנימין נתן 300 כסף ו5 חליפות שמאלות, ולאביו שלח כזאת 10 חמורים נוסעים מטוב מצרים, ו10 אתונות נוסעות, פרווה לחם ומזון לאביב לדרך, וישלח את אחיו וילכו ויאמר עליהם אל תרגזו בדרך ויעלו ממצרים ויבואו ארץ כנען אל יעקב אביהם ויגידו לו לאמור עוד יוסף חי וכי הוא מושל בכל ארץ מצרים ויפוג ליבו כי לא האמין להם וידברו אליו את כל דברי יוסף אשר דיבר עליהם וירא את העגלות אשר שלח יוסף לשאת אותו ותחי רוח יעקב אביהם.
So in this aliyah, Jacob hears the news, and it says in the Hebrew, "Vayafag libo," and his heart went numb, and he couldn't believe what his sons were telling him. Now, it's possible he couldn't believe them because they already lied about Joseph having been killed by a wild animal when they showed Jacob the ketonet pasim, the multicolored tunic, the tunic of many stripes that Jacob had given Joseph that the brothers had dipped into animal blood to prove their case that Joseph was killed, rather than telling him that the truth that they had sold him into slavery. So why should Jacob believe them again? The question is for the rabbis, who told Jacob the news? Which of the brothers or who in the family told Jacob the news? And the reason that's a question is because in the next section, which we're not going to read as the portion continues, Jacob says, yes, now he finally understands that Joseph is definitely alive. His brothers, his sons aren't lying to him. They said, let's go as soon as we can. And the Torah lists for us all the members of the household, the 70 members of the household who are going down to Egypt. In that list of 70 names, there are 69 men and one woman, the daughter of Asher, whose name is Serach. So for that, when there's something unusual in the list, the Hebrew word is darsheni. It's there to interpret me. As if the phrase is there yelling out at us, I'm here, you got to notice me, and you have to interpret me in some way. So why is there only one? It goes against genetics and statistics that there should only be one daughter in all of the family members who are there. Of course, there are other girls who would be there, but so something about her warranted mention. But we don't know. The Torah mentions Serach 2 other times in the list of genealogy. So she's listed in the book of Numbers, and she's listed in the book of Chronicles. So she existed, but it doesn't say anything about what she did. So the rabbis then say that she's the one who was designated to tell Jacob that Joseph was still alive. And she did it in a gentle way with song. The phrase was, Od Yosef Chai, Joseph is still alive. And somehow she did this in a gentle way so that, the rabbis say, so that Jacob wouldn't be stunned. Perhaps with this incredible news, he would have a heart attack with this sudden information that totally changes his life and changes everybody else's life to see. They assumed one thing, and now that assumption has, for 20 years, is false. And so that could be a very dangerous situation. But Serach is the one, according to the rabbis, who eased Jacob into that news. And for that, the rabbis say, she was blessed with immortality. And they assign her the task. Now, the rabbis understand that we already know the Torah by heart, so that they're not giving anything away when the rabbis say in the Midrash here to remind us that at the end of next week's portion, Joseph has his brothers promise him that his bones will be returned to Israel to be buried. And then in the book of Exodus, we'll read in several weeks, when the Israelites leave Egypt, Moses brings Joseph's bones with him. 200 years have elapsed between the death of Joseph and Moses leading the people out of Egypt. How did Moses know where Joseph's bones were buried? It was Serach, because she's immortal, because she was given the blessing by Jacob of immortality. She's the one who showed Moses where Joseph was buried. And so with elements of the story, who's the one who told Jacob that Joseph is still alive? Who's the one who showed Moses that where Joseph was buried? Why is Serach the only woman mentioned of all the 70 names of people going down to Egypt? The rabbis make that connection to tell us this fascinating story. So Serach, along with Elijah, who's more famously the one who appears for the rabbis to solve problems, to foretell news, because Elijah in the book of Kings is described as not dying, but rather ascending to heaven in a fiery chariot. And so for the rabbis, that means Elijah is still alive, and his job is to foretell the news of the coming of the Messiah. So these two people, Elijah and to a lesser degree Serach, their roles in Jewish tradition are to be there to help us in times of crisis, and to, in Serach's position, to ease the pain and reconcile, to ensure people are where they are supposed to be, that Jacob gets the news gently, that Moses is able to fulfill Joseph's promise, the promise that he had his brothers make to him, that he would be buried in Egypt. Also in this section, before we can read the last section, God speaks to Jacob on page 280, in which God hadn't spoken to Jacob in nearly 20 years. The last time the Torah records God speaking to Jacob was before the reunion of Jacob and his brother Esau. There was an encounter with the angel, of course, and God spoke to him at that time. The Torah does not describe any other encounter between Jacob and God until this point, when Jacob is about to leave the land of Israel and go down to Egypt. So at those critical times when the individuals in the Torah are going against the covenant, God promises Abraham and Sarah and their descendants the land of Israel in perpetuity. If the people are leaving the land of Israel, God has to reassure them it's okay to do that, or to tell them not to do that. And here God is saying to Jacob, it's okay to leave. Joseph will take care of you all the way to the end of your life. So Jacob now has, in this portion, according to the rabbis, he received psychological, there was a psychological transition of getting the news from Serach, and here he had spiritual comfort from God about this transition of going down to Egypt to reside there. Chapter 47, the family arrives and they meet Pharaoh, and Naomi is going to read from the very end of the portion, but I want to also point this out. When Joseph introduces his father Jacob to Pharaoh, Jacob is 130 years old at this point, and you don't know what Jacob is going to say to the king of Egypt. And it could be a very intimidating thing, but for somebody 130 years old, maybe not so intimidating. You might figure, I can say whatever I want. I don't have a filter. I don't need to be diplomatic. What can anybody do to me? I've reached 130. nothing can hurt me. So if you look on page 285, chapter 47, verse 7, chapter 47, verse 7, page 285, Joseph then brought his father Jacob and presented him to Pharaoh, and Jacob greeted Pharaoh. Now, verse 8, Pharaoh asked Jacob, Kama yamei shnei chayecha. In easy English, how old are you? Or literally, how many are the days of the years of your life? So that's a more poetic, longer way of asking, how old are you? Kind of not a nice question to ask somebody, but perhaps Pharaoh is stunned by how old Jacob looks, and maybe Pharaoh has never seen anyone who has lived to Jacob's age. And what does Jacob answer? Vayomer Yaakov el Paro, Jacob says to Pharaoh, Yemei Shnei, the days of the years of Megurai, the days of the years of my living, but not living as in life, but living as in a place, that my sojourns in the English, the years of my sojourn, and they put in brackets on earth, the days of the years of my sojourning. Lagur means to live in a place. So Megurai, the place where I live, days of the years of the place where I live is 130 years. Few and bad, ma'at v'ra'im hayu yamei shnei chayai. Few and bad, or evil, or harsh, have been the days of the years of my life. Velo hisigu et yamei shnei chayei avotai, and they haven't reached yet the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their sojourning. Meaning, Isaac lived 180, Abraham lived 175, Jacob recognizes he's only 130, he has 50 more years to go to catch up to his father. So what do we make of this unusual statement? The days of the life, the days of the years of my sojourning, the place where I live, have been few and far between. So you might think that with God having spoken to him a few times in his life, granted spread out over a number of years at times, he would still have some comfort that he has an unusual life and perhaps good. But as a human being, he knows he's had a hard life. He grew up with his father favoring his twin brother, his mother loving him. He grew up being forced to deceive his twin brother to get a blessing, to run away from home to escape his brother's wrath, to be deceived by his uncle, falling in love with one woman and being forced to marry somebody else, having that woman that he loves finally to marry, but to die in childbirth with her second son, with Benjamin, and then to be told that his other son from that wife, Rachel, was killed, and only to find out alive. So if those are the events that the Torah focuses on, it's quite a harsh life indeed. And so even though these events foreshadow events of Jewish history, and they are important to set the tone for what will be happening in the future of the entire Jewish people, essentially this story is a human story, a story of a man who's 130 years old who sees his life as being harsh and short and bad because of what's happened to him. And that's, in the end, no matter what happens in our life, no matter the good things that we may do, the blessings that we may see, it all comes down to what tragedies we endure in our life and how we are able to overcome them. It all comes down to our personal understanding of these events. And so the portion ends verses 20 chapter 47, verse 20, where Naomi will pick up for us until the end of the portion with the people in Joseph's entire family settling in the land of Goshen. So Naomi, if you can pick up for us on page 287, verse 20, in your Chumash, chapter 47, verse 20, the end of the 7th Aliyah.
Vayiken Yosef et kol admat Mitzrayim lefaro, ki macharu Mitzrayim ish sadehu ki chazak aleihem hara'av, vati haaretz lefaro, ve'et ha'am ha'evir oto le'arim, mitzegvo Mitzrayim va'ad katzehu, rak admat kohanim lo kanaki, chok lekohanim me'et faro, ve'achalu et chukam, asher natan lahem faro al kain, lo macharu et admatam, vayomer Yosef el ha'am hein, kaniti etchem hayom, ve'et admatchem lefaro, hilachem zera uzratem et ha'adama, v'haya batavuot, untatem chamishit lefaro, ve'arba hayadot yelachem, lezera hasadeh ul'ochlechem, v'la'asher bevatechem lechol etapachem, v'yamaru hechayitanu, nimtza chen be'enei Adoni, v'hayinu avadim lefaro. Vayasem otach Yosef lechok ad hayom hazeh ad mad Mitzrayim lefaro lachomesh rak ad mad kohanim levadam lo hayeta lefaro. Vayeshev Yisrael be'eretz Mitzrayim be'eretz Goshen ve'yachazu vach vayifru vayirbu me'od.
Yasha Koach Naomi, thank you very much for reading these selections of the portion for us this morning. That also how the portion ends, Vayifru Vayirbu Ma'od. They were fertile and increased greatly, is also foreshadowing to what we'll read in the book of Exodus, how the Israelites became fertile and multiplied in the land of Egypt. Before we continue with the Haftarah, I want to recite the prayer for those who are ill. It's on page 173 in Lev Shalem, 144 in Sim Shalom. If you have a name to add to the list of names that I have, then just unmute yourselves and I'll go around my screen. Please understand that the way everybody's situated on your screen is different than the way they're situated on my screen. And so even though you might be on the top of your screen, you might be at the end on my screen. So I'll get to you. Trust me that I will get to you. Just as long as your screen is unmuted, then I'll know to call on you. Mishaberach Avatein Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Vimotenu Sarif Garachav Leah Huyivarech Verapeyat Cholim Shmuel Ben Karet Penina Bat Chanaleah Simitzivia Bat Zelda Tzipachana Bat Golda Ruth Bat Sarah Nes Gildor Ben Shoshana Shlomo Ben Golda Tzivia Sarah Bat Simaleah Simcha Natan Ben Risachana Avia Sarah Bat Cyril Issa Rachel Penina Bat Ariella Tzipora Sheva Bat Razel Chaim Ben Rachaleah Gavriel Ben Batya Yehuda Ben Leah Froma Dereda Bat Zisha Malka Chava Bat Tzivia Sarah Batya Bat Rivka, Gloria Hyason, Howard Salter, Shira Elisheva Bat Sarah, Yosef Shlomo Ben Batya, John Al Koba, Devora Sheshel Bat Chaya Rochel, Ephraim Ben Golda, Yaakov Hirsch Ben Tzipora, Batya Tziro Bat Sheva, Razel Bat Esther, Yosef Betzalel Ben Rut, Zev Ben Chaya, and Bela Chana Bat Fega. Jacob, do you have a name? Cantor Adina and Glenn?
Gershon ben Freya, Baruch ben Rochel, Yirmiyahu Aryeh ben Rochel, Rochel bat Leah, Rudadina bat Sarah, Rina bat Gabriella.
Gretchen Marianne Klein, Livia Bat Rachel, Reuven Asher Ben Leah.
Audrey Haber.
Ed Klawansky and Joe Ellen Musson.
Dad.
Gila bat Chaya, Moshe ben Miriam, Minda Fruma bat Malka Fredel, Harav Ephraim ben Yente, Svea Chaya bat Chana, Mordechai ben Sprinza Pessel, Dova Chava bat Elka.
David Polinsky.
Anna bat Chana.
Rita.
Sarah bat Freda Rivka, Sila bat Zipporah, Ram ben Gita, Sivia bat Sarah, Brian Freda bat Mildred, Yehuda bat Celia.
Wendy.
Patty Kane, Debbie Hartman, Doug Blanchard.
Marv Kruger.
Tony Bloor.
Michael Gross.
Miriam Saravat Brina, David Ben Shena, Sarah Miriam Bat Rachel, Margalit Chaya Bat Batsheva, and Charnalea Bat Chaya Sarah.
Ami.
Rachel Bat Sadie.
Arnie.
Avraham Ben Zelda.
And let me see if there's Margie.
Avraham Ben from Elka and Esther Chaya Bat Tulsi Yachad.
Al Kleiman.
Alan Firestone.
Howie.
Heather Stein.
Danny.
Adrian Persson and Alvin Ben.
I know Charlotte Petoskey is trying to unmute herself. I can't unmute her. And I know, so Charlotte, I know that the list of names of members of your family, we're praying for them as well. The Kol HaCholim B'Kilatenu HaKadosh Baruch Hu HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Aleihem Lahachazikam L'Rabotam V'Yishlach Lahem Mehera Refuah Shlema Min HaShamayim Refuat HaNefesh Refuat HaGuf B'Toch Shar HaCholim V'Chazek Yedei HaOskim B'Tzarcheihem Shabbatim L'Zok Refuah Krova Lavo HaShabagal V'Zman Kariv and Omar Amen. The Debbie Friedman song Mishe Be'Rach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishe Be'Rach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Andy Sandberg is going to chant the Haftorah for us in just a moment, and it's nice to see that his daughters are on as well to cheer him on. The Haftorah for Vayigash is taken from the prophet Ezekiel from the 37th chapter. It's found on page 291 in our Chumash, and it connects just what I was talking about before. The Torah essentially is meant to be a book in which we, as the entire Jewish people, derive important lessons, ethical and moral principles, as well, according to the rabbis, as well as a system of Jewish law and the commandments that we follow. And so we see it in one sense as the book that's globally associated with the entire Jewish community. But it's also about a family, but it takes the family, takes the story of the family and derives these global lessons from that. So as Joseph and Judah reunited, Judah approached Joseph without knowing it was Joseph at that moment. Joseph and Judah are right next to each other. The family about to be reunited comes as a symbol for our Haftorah, in which the prophet Ezekiel is told by God to take two sticks, write on one of them the name Ephraim. Later in the Bible, Joseph had two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who become two of the tribes of Israel. Ephraim becomes the name associated with the northern kingdom of Israel. So Joseph, Ephraim, the same thing. Take Ephraim, represent the northern kingdom of Israel that had been exiled to Assyria 150 years before the nation of Judah, the southern kingdom of Israel, Judah, the southern, that main tribe that was the southern kingdom of Israel, how they split apart because of two different exiles. Ezekiel in Babylonia is told by God to take these sticks, write on one Ephraim, the other one Judah, put them together to symbolize the reunification, the future reunification of the Jewish people. And so therefore, the story of this morning's Torah reading wasn't just about an event in the life of Joseph and his family, but it was an event in the life of the Jewish people, and a prophetic foreshadowing of the future that we haven't experienced yet as a Jewish people. We, after the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, we were dispersed around the world. And yes, the state of Israel is reestablished, but those 10 northern tribes represented by Ephraim still have not returned. And part of the hope of the Messianic era, the hope and prayer, is that there will come a day when all Jews, lost Jews, and those still around will be reunited in the land of Israel. The Haftarah is on page 291. Blessings before and after the Haftarah in Lev Shalem 175, in Sim Shalom 146 and 147. Go ahead, Andy.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'rasa b'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai abocher b'Torah Moshe Abdo, Yisrael Amo, Uvindiei Haemet Matzendeh. Vahi Divaronai Elai Lemor, Ve'ata Ben Adam, Kach Lecha Eitz echad, uktov alav lihuda, v'livnei Yisrael chaverav, ukach eitz echad, uktov alav, liYosef eitz Ephraim, V'chol Beit Yisrael chaverav, v'karav otam echad el echad, lecha le'etz echad, v'hayu la'achadim be'yadecha. Decha asher yomeru elecha b'nei amcha lemor halo tagid lanu ma'elela daber alehem ko amar Adonai Elohim hinei Ani lokeach et eitz Yosef asher b'yad Ephraim v'shiftei Yisrael chaverav v'natati otam alav et eitz Yehuda v'asitim Le'etz echad, v'hayu echad b'yadi, v'hayu ha'etzim, asher tiktov aleihem, v'yadka le'eineihem. v'daber alehem, ko amar Adonai Elohim, hine ani lokeach et bnei Yisrael mibein hagoyim asher halchu sham, v'kibatzti otam misaviv, v'beiti otam el admatam, ve'asiti otam legoy echad ba'aretz b'harei Yisrael umelech echad yileh lechulam lemelech v'lo yiyu od lishnei goyim v'lo chekatzu od Lishtei mamlechot od, velo yitamu od, v'gilu lehem, uvshikutzehem, uv'chol pishehem, v'hoshati otam. Mikol moshvotehem, asher chateu lahem, v'tiharti otam, v'hayu li le'am, v'ani ehyeh lahem le'Elohim. V'avdi David melech alehem, v'ro'eh echad יהיה לכולם, ובמשפטי ילכו, וחוקותי ישמרו, ויעשו אותם. וישבו על הארץ, אשר נתתי לעבדי ליעקב, אשר ישבו בה אבותיכם, וישבו עליה המה, ובניהם, ובני בניהם עד עולם, ודוד עבדי נשיא להם לעולם. וקראתי להם ברית שלום, ברית עולם יהיה אותם, ונתתי והרביתי אותם, ונתתי את מקדשי בתוכם לעולם. והיה משכני עליהם, והייתי להם לאלוהים, והמה יהיו לי לעם. וידעו הגויים כי אני אדוני מקדש את ישראל בהיות מקדשי בתוכם לעולם. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik b'kol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer v'yoseh, ha'medaber u'mekayim, shekol dvarav emet v'tzedek. Ne'eman atah Adonai Eloheinu, v'ne'emanim devarecha, v'davar echad midvarecha, achol lo yashuv rekam. Ki el melech ne'eman v'rachaman ata, Baruch ata Adonai, ha'el ha'ne'eman b'chol dvarav. Rachem Al Zion, ki hive chayenu, v'lalu nefesh toshia bimheira ve'amenu, Baruch ata Adonai. Misameach Zion bevanecha.
Amen.
Samkeinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Me'eliyahu hanavi avdecha, U'malchut Beit David meshichecha, B'mehera yavo, Ve'yagel libenu, Al kisa'o lo yeshev zah, Ve'lo yinchalu od acherim ekevodo, Ki v'shem kodshecha nishbata lo, Shelo yichbe neiro le'olam va'ed, Baruch ata Adonai, Magen David.
Amen.
Al Torah, ve'al avodah, ve'al anvi'im, ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, likdusha ve'limnucha, lechavod u'tifaret. Al hakol, Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach, u'marechim otach, Yitbarech Shimcha, B'fi Chol Chai Tahami Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Ata Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. Yasher koach to Andy for chanting the Haftarah beautifully for us this morning. And we continue in our Sidurim. Excuse me. We continue in Lev Shalem on the second paragraph on page 176, or on page 148 in Sim Shalom, the second paragraph on that page, the prayer for those who serve the community. My mother will read this prayer for us in memory of her mother, my grandmother, whose yard site was earlier this week.
May God, who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless the entire congregation together with all holy congregations, them, their sons and daughters, their families, and all that is theirs, along with those who unite to establish synagogues for prayer, and those who enter them to pray, and those who give funds for heat and light, wine for Kiddush and Havdalah, bread to the wayfarer and charity to the poor, and all who devotedly involve themselves with the needs of this community and the land of Israel. May the Holy One reward them, remove sickness from them, heal them, and forgive their sins. May God bless them by making all their worthy endeavors prosper, as well as those of the entire people Israel. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Mom. And Wendy Abraham is going to read for us the prayer for our country on 177, or the bottom of 148. She too is doing this in memory of her mother, whose yard site was earlier this week as well.
Thank you. I'm going to read the alternate prayer, if that's okay.
Okay.
Our God and God of our ancestors, grant to our country the will and wherewithal to fulfill its calling to justice, liberty, and equality. May each of us fulfill our responsibility of citizenship with care, generosity, and gratitude, ever conscious of the extraordinary blessings of freedom, ever mindful of our duties to one another. Bless those who volunteer to labor on behalf of all of us. May they find the strength and courage to complete their tasks and fulfill their dreams. May our judges, elected leaders, and all who hold public office exercise their responsibilities with wisdom, fairness, and justice for all. Fill them with love and kindness, and bless them that they may walk with integrity on the paths of peace and righteousness. Creator and protector of all, watch over all of our armed forces and all those entrusted with our safety as they daily put their lives at risk to protect us and our freedoms. Be with them in times of danger, give them courage to act with honor and dignity, as well as insight to do what is right in your eyes. Fill us all with the gifts of love and courage, that we may create a world that reflects your glory. May we each respond to the charge of your prophet, For what does Adonai demand of you, but to act justly, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God? May the one who brings peace on high bring peace and prosperity to our world and keep us in safety. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Wendy. And Ami Friedman is going to read for us the prayer for the state of Israel. He too has yahrzeit for his mother today. Prayer for the state of Israel is on 178 in the Lev Shalem or 149 in Sim Shalom.
אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו, ברך את מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחת גאולתנו. הגן עליה בעברת חסדך, ופרוס עליה סוכת שלומך, ושלח אורך ועמתך לראשיה, שריה ויועציה, ותקנם בעצה טובה מלפניך. חזק את ידי מגיני ארץ קודשנו, והנחילם אלוהינו ישועה, ועטרת ניצחון תעטרם. ונתת שלום בארץ ושמחת עולם ליושביה, ונאמר אמן.
Amen. Thank you very much, Ami and Wendy and my mother for reading those prayers for us. We continue now with Ashrei, page 181 in Lev Shalem, 151 in Sim Shalom.
אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יהללוך סלה.
Ashrei Am shekach lo, Ashrei Am sh'Adonai Elohav.
תהילה לדוד, ארומינך אלוהי המלך, ועברך שמך לעולם ועד.
V'chol yom avachecha, v'yahalala shimcha le'olam va'ed.
גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, ולגדולתו אין חקר.
V'lador yishabach ma'asecha, gvurotecha yagidu.
הדר כבוד הודיך, ודברי נפלאותיך עשיך.
V'zuz narotecha yomeru, gdulatecha asaprena.
זכר רב טובך יביעו, וצדקתך ירננו.
Anen v'rachum Adonai, erech apayim ugdal chesed.
טוב אדוני לכל, ורחמיו על כל מעשיו.
V'yoducha Adonai kol ma'asecha, v'chasidecha yevarchucha.
כבוד מלכותך יאמרו, וגבורתך ידברו.
L'hodia livnei ha'adam gvurotav, v'chvod adar malchuto.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור.
Zomech Adonai l'chol hanoflim, v'zokef l'chol hakfufim.
עיני כל אליך יסברו, ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם בעיתו.
Poteach et yadecha, u'maspia l'chol charatzon.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו.
Rov Adonai l'chol korav, l'chol asher yikra'uhu ve'emet.
רצון יראיו יעשה, ואת שבעתם ישמע ויושיעם.
Zomer Adonai et kol ohava, ve'et kol harasha'im yashmid.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד. ואנחנו נברך יח, מעתה ועד עולם, הללויה.
Before we continue, just a moment, I'm going to put Jonah and Jacob Lansky on the spot, hoping that they will, I can't see them, but hoping that they will do the Berei Pri Hagafen at the end of the service. I'm just assuming that, yes, there you go. Jonah's showing off that he can put that icon up there, which we all can do, by the way, if you know where to do that down below. Good for the thumbs up, good. So we continue with Chatzi Kaddish from Musaf. We rise, page 184 in Lev Shalem, 155 in Sim Shalom, and then we will start the Amida out loud on the next page.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה, בעלמא דברה קירותך, וימליך מלכותך בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמך רבה מברך, לעולם וליעלמי עלמיה, יהי ויתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמך דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב אלוהי שרה אלוהי רבקה אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא אל עליון גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ופוקד ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם מכלכל חיים בחסד מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידה מלך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים.
מקדיש חג סוציח ספי קודש מקדישים לך בקודש ככדורי למך קרזל זה ויאמר
נריצך ונקדישך כסוציח שרפי קודש המקדישים שמך בקודש ככתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו כבודו מלא עולם משרתיו שואלים זה לזה איה מקום כבודו לעומתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו ממקומו הוא יפן ברחמים ויחון עם המייחדים שמו בכל יום תמיד, פעמיים ביעבה, שמע אומרים. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. הוא אלוהינו אבינו, הוא מלכנו מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו שנית לעיני כל חי, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לא ימוש לעולם ועד. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, כי אל מלך גדול, גדול וקדוש, גדול וקדוש אתה. כי אל מלך גדול, גדול וקדוש, גדול וקדוש אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue silently 188 to 192 in Lev Shalem, 158 to 161 in Sim Shalom. As we conclude our private prayers, we continue with Sim Shalom 191 in Lev Shalem, the top of 161 in Sim Shalom.
שים שלום בעולם, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך ברכנו אבינו כולנו כאחד באור פניך כי באור פניך נתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו תורת חיים ואהבת חסד אהבת חסד וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום שים שלום בעולם טובה וברכה חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך שים שלום בעולם טובה וברכה חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים
עלינו
ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
Amen. We continue with Kaddish Shalem, the full Kaddish, 203, and Lev Shalem, 181, and Name Shalom.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה בעלמא דברה קירותך וימליך מלכותך בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי תכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמך במברך לעולם יעלמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמך דקודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן תתקבל צלותון ובאותון דכל ישראל קדם אבוהון די ושמיה ואמרו אמן יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן אין כאלוהינו אין כאדוננו אין כמלכנו אין כמושיענו מי כאלוהינו מי כאדוננו מי כמלכנו מי כמושיענו נודל אלוהינו נודל אדוננו נודה למלכנו נודה למושיענו ברוך אלוהינו ברוך אדוננו ברוך מלכנו ברוך מושיענו אתה הוא אלוהינו אתה הוא אדוננו אתה הוא מלכנו אתה הוא מושיענו אתה הוא שהקטירו אבותינו Rachamim. Yanai na 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 na, yanai na 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 na, yanai na na na, yanai na 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 na. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Chanina, Talmidei Chachamim Shem Shene'emar. Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Aleinu leshabeach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת. אין עוד, אין עוד. ולימיה תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
I'll be reciting now the El Male, the memorial prayer, and read off a list of names that I have of the art sites for today through the coming week. El Male Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Ametzei Menucha Nechona, Tacha Kanfei Ashchina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim Etoharim Kezohar, Akiyam Asirim, Lenishmot, Daniel Ben Tzvido Veleya, Chaya Bat Moshe Udevora, Harry Cohen, Chava Friedman, Chava Bat Chaim Gershon, Moses Melech Chaim, Moshe Elimelech Ben Aaron David, Ria Nussbaum, Ria Bat Reb Michael Vasara, Anita Postal, Chana Bat Abraham Tzipora, Roslyn Galef Zundel, Rachel Mendel Bat Yisrael Verivka, Pauline Goss, Faya Bat Zelig, Blanche Green, Nettie Feiner Podolsky, Nesha Bat Yaakov Rachel, David Reznikov, Leon Appel, Joseph Orenstein, Yosef Ben Shlomo Umendele, Francis Berger, Froma Bat Tybal Vayona, Rose Lillian Blackstone, Roika Leah Bat Moshe, Shirley Blecker, Harry Lichtman, Yitzhak Hirsch ben Yisrael Moshe, Samuel Sorolnik, Pauline Slotnick, Leonard Tukin, Laser Ben Mendel, Rose Kirstein, Rachel Bat Reb Shmuel, Denise Marzuk, Leah Bat Lieto Esther, Mary Neifeld, Masi Bat Shmuel Eli, Julia Sirach, Yael Ben Chaim V'Michla, Sarah Sandler, Pauline Silver, Pesha Bat Zachariah, Rachel Spiewak, Rachel Bat Moshe, Frank Fisher, Sanford Slade, Daniel Saul Douglas, David Shlomo Ben Elia, Moses Jacob Goldberg, Moshe Yaakov Ben Shlomo Yitzhak, Miriam Hoffman, Josephine Jacob, Molly Manis Margolis, Charlotte Ringer, Hannah Bat Abba Vieta, Gerald Paul Simon, Jean Weisberg, Zisha Bat Shlomo, Minnie Weiland, Minna Bat Chaim Yankov, Peril, Shehalchu L'olamam, Began Eden Temenuchatam, Anabal Harachamim, Hastirim Beseter Knafecha L'olamim, Mutzor Betzor Chaim and Ishmotehem, Adonai Hu Nachalatam, V'yanuchu B'Shalom Amishkavotehem, V'namar, Amen. Mourner's Kaddish is on 207 and Lev Shalem, 184 and Sim Shalom. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, Alma divrach Hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agalav izman kariv imru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'me'ol maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei, v'yihadar v'yitalev v'yitalal Shemei d'kudesha barichu. Ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav v'yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Before we conclude, just couple of announcements. Want to wish Yasher Koach to all those who participated today. To the Lansky brothers, Jacob and Jonah, for being our Zoom co-hosts today. Their father would have joined in with them, but their father, Josh, had to be in the hospital with their grandmother, Josh's mother, Betty Ann Lansky, who dislocated her hip last night. So hopefully everything will be okay. And our prayers go out to her and to the family. And Yasher Koach to Naomi for reading Torah, to Andy for chanting the Haftarah for us, to my mother, to Wendy Abraham and Ami Friedman for reading the prayers for us, and of course to Cantor Adina for leading us beautifully in the service this morning. Shabbat is over about 5:30, just a little bit after 5:30. So we will have the evening minyan and Havdalah this evening at 5:35. Tomorrow morning, adult education is on a little bit of a break. So tomorrow, as well as the religious school. And so tomorrow morning we have minyan as usual at 8:45. There's also the Sisterhood Rosh Chodesh program led by Susan Rubinstein. That's a special Zoom link, not the regular one that's used for everything else. Just look for the Zoom link. If you don't have it handy in an email or something, go to the calendar page of the shul website and just look for tomorrow's date, and you'll see the Rosh Chodesh circle listed there in the afternoon. Click on that and you'll find a link inside that listing there. It's not so hard to do. Just find the calendar on the shul website, go to tomorrow's date, go to the event, and you'll see the link there. That I will be away the next two Shabbatot, And so Cantor, you'll be in good hands with Cantor Adina and Paul Tillis running the services. And also my father will give the Devar Torah on both those Shabbases. And I will be back on Shabbat, the 16th, I guess, the 15th and 16th. So I think that is just, there was information in the weekly update about a new class that I will be starting on Monday, January 11th, a weekly class at 1 o'clock in the afternoon that I will also record. It's called A Journey Through the Jewish Year. So just like Wednesday mornings at 11, we look at the weekly Torah portion to get some insights and learn some things that way. The Journey Through the Jewish Year, we'll look at the calendar, what that week has in store in terms of Shabbat, a holiday, a particular prayer that we'll look at in order to further enhance our appreciation of the nuanced and rich Jewish tradition that we have. So we conclude the service with Adon Olam on page 211 in Lev Shalem, or 187 in Sim Shalom.
Adon Olam Hashem Alach B'terem kol yitzir nivra Le'et nasa v'chefzo kol Azai melech shemo nikra Azai melech shemo nikra Ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado imloch nora ve'hu aya ve'hu hove ve'hu yeh betifara ve'hu yeh betifara ve'hu echad V'yein sheni lehamshilo leachbira beli reshit beli tachlit velo haoz v'hamisra velo haoz v'hamisra vehu eli v'chai goali Betzor chevli v'yetzara vehu nisi umanos li menat kosi beyom ekra menat kosi beyom ekra v'yado avkid ruchi Ve'etishan ve'ayira ve'imruchi geviati Adonai li ve'lo ira Adonai li ve'lo ira.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You can follow along with Kiddush. Jonah, you got a Kiddush cup there. He's getting it. Kiddush is in Lev Shalem on page 77, in Sim Shalom, page 315. And Jonah and Jacob, please be sure to unmute yourselves so we can unmute yourself, Jonah, so that we can hear you say the Berei Pri Hagafen. Are you unmuted? Jacob? There you go. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael t'shabala, Sodara shabala doratam brit olam, Beini yovein b'nei Yisrael t'hili olam ki sheshet yamim asad Adonai t'shamayim v'yat haaretz, Uvayom hashvi shabbat v'yinafash, Zachor yom ha'shabbat l'kodsho shesh yamim tavod v'asita kom lachtecha, V'yom hashvi shabbat l'Adonai Elohecha, Lo taseh kom lacha atavim chavitecha avdecha v'amatcha v'emtecha, V'gercha shebisharecha, Ki shesh yamim asad Adonai t'shamayim v'yat haaretz eliyam v'kol shabam, V'yanach b'yom hashvi'i, Al Kain Berach Adonai et Yom HaShabbat ve'kadshehu Savri. Go ahead, Jonah and Jacob.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen.
Amen. Prayers for your grandmother, guys. Thanks for your help this morning. You can unmute yourselves, everyone. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you.
Shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
shalom. Yasher koach.
Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom to everybody.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom to all.
Shalom.
Shabbat
Have a
shalom.
nice
Stay
time
well.
off.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You like that.
Shalom.
Shabbat
I wanted to tell
shalom.
you that my niece had a baby boy on Tuesday on my mother's birthday.
Oh, my.
Mazel tov.
8.5 pounds.
Wow.
We have a
Yes,
guest.
Dylan
That's
Reed.
Mazel
We
tov.
have a new
Mazel
baby in the
tov.
family.
Very nice.
Yeah, very exciting.
Mazel tov.
Enter Adina and Glenn.
Thank
Good to
you.
see your son
Thank
there.
you.
Very
All right.
nice.
This is
Be
Josh.
well.
He's the
Yes, you too.
youngest.
Jonah,
Have a nice
Jonah,
time off.
Jonah, Charlotte.
Yes.
All
Yes.
I had to do was
From
touch the
college
screen
for
like
a bit.
that, and then that wiped it out. Remember, I couldn't unscreen. I couldn't do it because it was, all I had
I
to do
know,
was touch the
Charlotte.
screen and touch that. I couldn't.
I
do
was
anything.
waiting for you. I saved you for the end. I thought that maybe you could do it.
I
by
know you
the
did,
end.
but all I had to do was touch the screen and then touch that.
Ah,
In other
well,
words, once I touched the screen, it was sort of wiped out what was ever there, and then when I touched that, it worked.
No, but by
So
the
next time I'm going to touch the screen first.
by the time this virus is over, we'll all be Zoom pros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be the day.
Marilyn.
We want to wish a happy birthday to Howie's twin daughters. Their birthday was yesterday.
Oh.
Babies.
To make you all feel young again, it was their 22nd birthday. You
Yeah.
might recall them running up and down the halls in the shul when they were about 3. So time marches on. Thank you.
Sure does.
And Marilyn and George.
Our latest number 19.
Oh my
Wow.
God. Oh,
Those
adorable.
fun. Yeah, look at Red. Oh, boy.
Mazel tov.
Yeah, mazel tov. Nice to share simchas. Very nice.
Yes, we love that.
Jonah, have a good trip.
Thank you. We're just renting a house somewhere just to get away.
okay.
So
Well,
hopefully
you
we'll be
need a
safe.
good vacation.
Well, yeah, just a little break.
Just do
We
it.
all do.
Just to do it.
All right, folks. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye-bye.
Shabbat shalom, Sylvia.
Shabbat shalom.